Jade,
Bruv.
what's happening? How are you?
I'm really good. This is a little bit different.
A little bit, right?
To
Yeah.
what it was before.
It's crazy. I mean,
How long's it been?
I don't know. When did you last come on?
I think it was February 24.
2024.
Was it?
Might even be longer.
January 24? Something like that. It's been a little while, bruv.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I started the pod September 2023.
Yeah.
It would have been January or February 2024.
And what are we in now? July
2025.
Shit, that's a long time.
What's been going on?
Well, we look a little different, don't we? You look really healthy.
And yourself?
Not that you didn't before. What's been going on? Life. And a beautiful life. Things just feel really different, Nick, to what they were last time we spoke. I just feel like, I feel like a bit of a different person. I think, the Jayde that was on your pod last time, I feel like that's an old version of me. It's like I have to think really hard to remember what she was like. Do you know what I mean?
I feel the same. I think like I always say you played such a huge part in my recovery. I think you helped me realise quite a lot. I actually remember after the podcast, we went for lunch.
We went for food.
And I was like, yeah, but I'm not an addict. And then he was like, well, talk to me a little bit about your using. I think I was saying, I always had like a few extra bags on me at all times. And like,
you had a spare one in the cupboard.
Yeah.
You'd hide
them in the
places.
cupboard. And you're like, Nick, I don't think that's normal. I just remember like, I think since then, I reckon I've spoke to you probably every single day since that podcast.
Yeah, every single day.
And like, I don't know, it's weird because all you did, was just be yourself. And then that positive energy that you have, just was rippled into my life. And then you would start telling me to do these little things, right? And I would be like,
like what?
Gratitude. And
right.
I remember being like, oh, what's she talking about, man? Like, what's this all about?
Well, you thought I was nuts.
Yeah, literally thought you was off your head. Like,
yeah.
And you was like,
I might be still a little bit.
We are a little bit ill, aren't we? Still. Okay. But yeah, I remember you saying write these things down that, like gratitude and talk about how you're feeling. And I was a bit like, okay, I'll give this a go. And like my life has changed so positively since you've been in it. So I just want to say thanks.
Well, thank you. My life has changed. You know what? You're like family now, right? You're like part of the furniture. And I'm so glad that I didn't even try to kind of have an impact on anything. And actually, I think you've had your own impact on your own life. Do you know what I mean? You've done this yourself. But it's just nice to have somebody, I guess, isn't it, like standing beside you, kind of understanding what you're going through. Because I think that's how we get on so well and why we get on so well. Because if other people listen to our conversations, Nick, or saw our WhatsApp messages, I think we'd be institutionalised at some stage. But it's like, on a serious note, I think it's just having somebody beside you that genuinely gets where your head's at, right? And I think that's one thing that we've both got that we understand with each other. Like, you'll ring and say something to me where the normal Joe, like out on the street, Joe blogs out on the street, would probably look at that and think, we had this conversation earlier. He'd probably look at it and think, what are you on about, bruv? But I get it, right? Because I was of the same kind of hopeless state of mind that you've been at some stage.
Yeah.
It's just nice to have somebody that understands you and understands the kind of the mindset that comes with being like in recovery and sobriety and stuff, that other people that are still, out having fun and partying and whatever, they kind of don't always get it, do they?
I think what you do for me, that helps massively, is like you'll check me in the right way, right? And I'll do the same to you as well. But like, for example, I'll be like, I always have a thing of like, almost like, well, let me speak to someone else. What would Jade think about this? Like, and I ask you, and then you, on a day that you're in good form and I'm not, you'll like pull me out of myself and be like, have you thought about it from this perspective? And when I say the mad stuff that I say to you, to somebody who's not in recovery or on a journey of sobriety, they look at you as if like you're speaking French, like, and look like you're mad. But you're like, no, I know what you mean, because I've been there and I get it. But have you thought about it from this point of view? And
like just reframing it, kind of thing. Yeah, I get that. And it's nice. But you do the same for me. And it seems funny, doesn't it? Because on the days that I'm on good form, is when you seem to ring me and be like, listen, this has happened, blah, blah, blah. And I can kind of guide you through it. And then on the days when you're on good form, I'm not. And I'm like, Nick,
Yeah.
what was it when I rang you?
There was a time, I think I was sitting on the sofa with Rach, and I think my phone rung, and you was in a mess, right? And I was just like, and
we can be honest about this, by the way. We don't have to hide anything.
Yeah, but I can't remember exactly because I can't remember the exact situation, but something had happened and you was in a bit of a mess. And like, I think the other thing that I've learned and that you taught me is like how to hold space for people. Old Nick, even in early sobriety, and even sometimes now, would be like, let me fix this for you. Let me do this. Let me tell you this. Wait, stop. Listen to me. But what I've learned from you and what I'm so grateful for, and I've learned through recovery, is like sometimes you need to allow people the space to actually process stuff through themselves. And what I've always found is, right, you actually have all the answers already. You just need someone who you trust to tell you. So you'll be like, oh, this is the situation, and I'll be like, what do you think you should do? And then you'll go around in circles, right? And then you'll get to this point, and I'll be like, so do you think that's the right thing to do? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, so why are you asking me?
Why are you asking me?
But you need that like bouncing off of someone, I think.
I think for anybody, when you're in a difficult situation like that, whether it's in normal life, whether you're in recovery, it doesn't matter. You need somebody to vent to, right? Like you said, you've probably already got the answers, but you've got to get it all out. It's like, when we journal and we do our gratitude and all that, it's like getting your mind onto a bit of paper, but I haven't always got the space to be doing that, especially if I'm at work or whatever in the middle of the day. I haven't got time to sit and get an A4 piece of paper out and start writing. So then you become my notebook, kind of. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, right, Nick, have you got some time? Yeah. And then I just like blurt it all out. And once I've said it, it gives me a little bit of clarity. And I'm like, oh, okay, that feels a bit better. Now let's actually analyse the situation now that we're calm and we've got that like mania out. You can't, yeah. I
was going to say, do you think that you do that now, though? Because I was in a meeting this morning, and it was a step 10 meeting, and we was talking about like you start to do step 10 without really realizing that you're doing it. So like, but for me, I had to, you making me write stuff down, right? And like other people in my recovery telling me like, you should journal, you should do this, you should do that. That made me actively seek what I was doing wrong. And now I passively, I don't have to think about it anymore. I just know what's right from wrong. And I think if I hadn't wrote it down in the first place and started to like reevaluate my life daily, at a very strict interval of like this time, this day, you need to do this, I wouldn't be in a position now where like I feel like sometimes I'm not even in control and I'm not making the decisions because I've handed something over to somebody else. And I think like I now constantly live life in that sort of step 10 where I'm like going, right, I was just pushed in front of that person on the train, like, should I have done that? Like, oh shit. And then I'll turn around to that person, I'm really sorry about doing that. Whereas before, like, wouldn't have even crossed my mind. Do you think that works for you, the same?
I think firstly, for the people that are listening to this that haven't been in like a 12-step recovery program, it might be just wise to let everybody know what step 10 is.
I ain't got a clue, mate.
So like taking a personal inventory of yourself and how you've been throughout the day. So that's what you're referring to, right? And I think when you're in recovery, part of a recovery program is your gratitude in the morning, and in the evening you reflect on your day, where you went wrong, work out how you could alter that to be a little bit better and make any amends where you kind of need to. And like you said, you write that down as it becomes part of your routine, right? So you almost have to do it daily just to get it like as part of your routine. But then subconsciously you kind of start, or you start doing that in your daily life anyway, like you said, and you'll check yourself as you're going along. And as you say something, do you get that like little feeling in your gut like, oh, I shouldn't have done that? And you're like, actually, I'm sorry, like, and you check yourself as you go along. You don't always have to write it down every evening. It just becomes a conscious part of your life, and making conscious choices to do the right thing regardless of how anybody else acts or anyone else's behaviour. Do you know what I mean? And I do that literally daily. You and I did it last night.
Yeah, we had to check ourselves.
We had to check ourselves on the phone last night, right? Because you get yourself into a situation where it's so easy for you to let your mind just run off on its own. But we have to check our mind and be like, actually, is that the right thing to do? Not really, but we can do that now. That's part of what a 12-step recovery program gives you. Shouldn't even be a recovery program, really. I think
it's a program for life.
It's a program for life. Everybody should do it. And check yourself when you're wrong. and admit it, that you're wrong, and move on about, you know, your life.
Yeah.
Without living in the shit all of the time.
Yeah, I think it's true, isn't it? And I guess that's another thing that I get into this whole like recovery world where I think everybody is thinking the same as me. And even you there, like saying like, what is step 10? You know, like what is this? And I think I forget that not everybody is in the same way that nobody thinks the same way that my brain thinks. But like you said, everybody would 100% benefit from doing
12-step program.
Yeah.
100%. You know, when your kids are at school and like they're like, oh, we're doing our GCSEs, chuck a 12-step in there, please.
Yeah.
Because like how many adults or people are like running around in life with no conscious awareness of themselves, right? Or where they're going wrong. And don't you think that like a 12-step would be perfect to put into like a GCSE module or something like that, so that people have to learn this? It's like part of your you know, before you can leave school, it's like the right of way to go into the world, have a little 12-step program. Because it's just, what's a 12-step program, Nick? Just making yourself accountable for your actions and being mindful of how you go about your day moving forward. We could all do with that. Do you know what I mean? But not enough people know about it to know that exists.
I didn't know what any of my like character defects were prior to doing that.
Right.
Like I had an awareness of that I could be a bit of a prick. Yeah, I had an awareness that I could be a little bit selfish at times, but I never really dug deep into like why or how. And I think like that process that I went through anyway, and my experience was just like doing that bit where you go back and you dig through thinking about like, you know, resentments that you've had in the past and talking about like what was your part, you know, for me has like absolutely
what role did you play in it?
Changed my whole perception on life, really. I think like I always try and just look at my part now, and you said it earlier, like accountability, isn't it? You take accountability for everything that you do, not all the time, and again, but then that's when you have people like you and friends and people to check you and say like, you know, I'm not really interested in what you think's good for you. I'm telling you like this isn't right for you.
And I think sometimes, you know, the way we go about life, Nick, and I think the last time I was on your pod, I'd only just come out of the situation where I think I'd been in victim mode for so long, and I just finally kind of pulled myself out of that. Like that freedom of understanding that, yes, Jayde, that happened to you, but are you going to let that affect you for the rest of your life? If you are, you better check yourself, because we don't want to be there. Yes, that's happened, but what are we going to do now to fix it, to move on? And in order to do that, you now need to sit down and take accountability for your actions and the role that you played in that. Because, yeah, okay, you were a victim of whatever it was. I've been a victim of things, you've been a victim. We all have, right? But the hardest part of taking accountability is realizing that you allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
Right? And then you reframe the victim mindset, because then you're almost like, well, was I actually a victim? I was a victim of myself quite a lot of the time, right? You're not always a victim of somebody else. You're a victim of your own actions. You know, you're a victim of not taking accountability for yourself. You're a victim of not doing the healing work on yourself, so you're pushing the blame out there on everyone else. Well, he did this to me and she did that. And whoa, why don't we just stop a second? And instead of projecting everything out here, let's turn the cards around, face them inwards and be like, okay, Jayde, well, where's your accountability here? What did you do wrong? Because there's two sides to every story, and I'll guarantee, you know, there was a massive role that I played in some of the situations that happened in my life. And once you can actually sit back and be like, yeah, okay, that happened to me because I allowed it, then we can heal, we can move on for it, take accountability and live freely, because you don't want to keep living back in that stuff anymore. Do you know what I mean? We all have shit like this that happens in life, but it's taking accountability for yourself where you went wrong, and then being able to move on from it and not have to sit in that pity party that we spoke about before, you know? I don't want to live in pity for myself anymore. What a horrible, lonely place that is. We don't have time for that anymore, do we?
No. I think it's so true. And I was gonna ask you, I know we said not looking too far back, but I wanted to ask a little bit about like acceptance and like those early stages of recovery. So the reason that I've got you on as a co-host, which for the next sort of like 4 or 5 episodes and possibly further, which I'm really hoping that we can, is because I wanted to take people through some topics that I know that I really struggled with. And I remember in early recovery or early sobriety or whatever it is you want to call it, like kind of thinking that I felt alone in these feelings. And like the first one for me was like acceptance. And it's like, what was like a lie you think that you told yourself for the longest time before you accepted the fact that, you know, like you have a problem and maybe you need to stop? And how did you break that lie in your head? Like, what was a lie you think you told yourself for a long time?
That I didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
That is the biggest lie. I'd be sitting there of an evening and opening my 3rd bottle of wine to suppress my emotions and giving myself the excuse that I'd had a big day today, or things were a little bit difficult with the kids today. That's all right. This is normal. I've seen people go and have a drink after work. All right, Jade. Well, they might have a glass of wine, maybe 2. They don't do 3 bottles. Do you know what I mean? And I still hid behind the alcohol and the fact that there was always an excuse as to why I was doing it. So I think the biggest thing for me was actually coming to terms with the fact that I had a problem. You know, even when I went to my first recovery meeting, and they gave me like the big book, you know, the big book came home with us. So the big book of AA for anybody that hasn't been in a 12-step program. And it's like the book of life for us, kind of, isn't it? And they handed me the book and they were like, one part of AA or CA meetings is they say, keep coming back. Even if you haven't got it, keep coming back. So I got this book and I was like, this book looks lovely. Nice, fresh new book. I'm going to stop off at Tesco's on the way home and get myself some highlighters so that I can go through the book and highlight everything. I'm just going to pick up a quick bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. And I went home and I remember sitting outside, and this is no word of a lie, and I was watching the sunset. You've seen my beautiful views outside of my house. I watched the sunset, opened the big book of AA, poured myself a glass of wine and started reading and highlighting the book. And that was my problem. I didn't think that I had a problem. I saw this shiny new book and my excitement was getting a highlighter and a glass of wine to sit and read through it. What is that about?
Nonsensical, isn't it? Like,
yeah, because I didn't have a problem, or so I thought. Do you know what I mean? So that was it. That was it for me. Just thinking or believing, and I truly believed it. That's the thing. I was so unwell that I truly believed that the way that I was behaving with my drinking was not a problem.
How long did it? So that's like, I guess that's almost like the first glimmer of hope.
Yes. In
your story, right? So you went to that meeting for whatever reason, right? The acceptance piece for me is like, I remember fucking so many times, I kind of knew I had a problem before I did anything about it, right? And I sat in that like thing of like, am I an alcoholic and a drug addict, or do I just have a drink problem? And like, is it just the drink and drugs? Because I think personally, there's a big difference between like a heavy drinker and user who stops drinking and then their life is still manageable. But my experience was like, well, you've taken this thing away from me, which is my comfort blanket. This is what gets me through the day. This is what like takes all that stress away. And my alcoholism got worse. Like,
unmanageable.
And I become crazily unmanageable, like erratic, emotional, up and down, like didn't really know what to do. But I personally went on like, at least 9 months of abstinence in not accepting that I had a problem, which I think, again, it is crazy. But how did you get from there, sitting there drinking that glass of wine and reading that AA book, to like actual acceptance? Because a lot of people I speak to nowadays kind of ask like, oh, have I got it yet? Do I understand? And it's like,
so if we're going to be really honest, I first walked into the rooms of CA or AA back in 2021. I think it was about August time of 2021, when I knew that there was a bit of a problem. It was during the COVID kind of situation. I knew that there was an issue. and I got a book there as well. And that was like my first experience of AA, but I didn't get sober until the 15th of September 23. So my experience, I kind of dipped in and out. I've probably done, I don't know, 5 or 6 meetings in between that kind of 2-year period. And then I remember when I kind of started taking it a little bit more seriously, I went into a CA meeting, I think it was January of 2023, and that's when they gave me the book. And it took me until September of just keep going back. It was just repeated cycles, Nick, of I go in there, I'll get 2 weeks clean. And it was that 14-day period for me that I couldn't get past. 14 days, I'd feel amazing. And then all of a sudden I think, oh, I feel better now. I'm going to go back and try that. Let me just try it one more time just to make sure. And then that 14 days of sobriety I thought was enough to carry me through, and it's not. You know, it just wasn't. The minute I got the taste of that alcohol again, I was off and I was gone for another month, and then it became unmanageable. I became unmanageable to myself, yeah. And then I'd go back in and I'd sit on the chair in the side of the room and I'd cry the whole way through the meeting, and everyone would be like, keep coming back, keep coming back. And I went back for like 12, 13 days, and then I got up and I left again, and I went home and I partied, or someone there was a 30th on or a 40th, or there's a festival or something good's on, I'll be all right. And then we just keep repeating the cycle. And then I think I said to you last time, you know, I was on the pod, it got to a stage in September where there was no 2-week periods anymore. This was just constant, everyday stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I think what ended up happening, Nick, was that I got sick of my own rubbish. I was sitting there one day and I remember thinking to myself, I am so sick and tired of listening to my own excuses. What next, Jayde? And I had a friend that was around me at the time. And this is why we have to be really mindful of the people that we surround ourselves with in life in general, but specifically in recovery. And this particular friend that I had at the time kept saying to me, but you haven't got a problem. I don't know why you keep saying that, Jayde. Stop putting yourself down. You're just going through a hard time. That's dangerous. Let's be mindful of the places that we're putting ourselves in and the people that we're hanging around, because that is not, you know, what somebody who is a raging addict needs to be hearing, you know. And I fed off of that a little bit, I think. And that was my excuse to keep going. And one day I looked at myself and I was like, actually, who are you listening to? Are we going to listen to somebody that is also kind of in the madness, you know, and wants you to continue the way that you are because you're almost feeding into their narrative of how they want life to be? And if I go sober or try and get clean, what's she going to do, you know? And I feel like now in hindsight, looking back, I was being told that I didn't have a problem, because if I had a problem, does that mean she's got a problem? Do you know what I mean? And she wanted to keep me there. So be really mindful of what you're doing. And that's what I did. And I remember that one day that I woke up and I remember I cried, Nick, I don't know, I think it was for a solid 6 hours or so. And I remember thinking to myself after it, you can't do this anymore, Jayde. You can't keep using excuses for what's happened in your past or what's going on now or what your friend's doing. I'd had enough of my own rubbish. And that's when it was like, right, let's do something about this. And I remember walking back into the rooms of recovery, and for that, I'd been in there before, like I said, I'd been to about 20 meetings maybe over the course of 2 years, more heavily in that last 6 months. But I walked in there with intention. I was intent. I was like, got rid of my Insta, deleted all my phone numbers, put my phone down, and I was standing on business. And I was like, I'm just going to disappear for a month. Another thing that happened, I remember thinking, I can't say to my mates, I'm going sober again, I need help, because I used to do that all the time. I was like, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut this time. And once I've got to a month, I'm going to go back and go, girls, like, I've done it. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't tell anyone. I just kind of went off the radar for a little bit. Whereas before I'd done it and I'm like, right, girls, I'm 2 weeks sober. You know, you keep like,
Yeah.
It was almost like I was trying to convince myself that I was doing the right thing. But when you really know, when you're really fed up of yourself and you're at that stage where you're like, right, then you kind of go silent and you're a little bit like, right, this is my journey. I don't need my friends to tell me that what I'm doing is right. I know in my heart that this is the right thing to do. And I got stuck in, And it worked because I was standing on business. I was in there with intention. I wasn't just going there because I thought it was the right thing to do. I knew what I wanted and I got it this time and it stuck. And I think that's the pivotal thing for me. You know, when you see people out there, Nick, that are drinking and using and everyone's like, go and tell them, show them. No, you can't. You can't tell anybody anything. You know this yourself. Someone can't tell you to get sober. You have to know in your heart that, like, right, this is the right time for me. And you do it for yourself before you do it for anybody else, you know. And that's what I did. And we're nearly 2 years on.
Yeah. I was literally getting emotional, obviously.
No, not you.
But yeah, me crying again. But just thinking like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's actually so beautiful because you just like...
Don't start me off.
In that moment, you have no idea. Like, I'm so grateful, man, that you did that because like, you've got no idea that moment there where you come in and you stood on business, like you said, and you was like, I'm fucking doing this, was the moment that like your life changed. And then now you're 2 years down the line and you're a totally different person, but you hit the nail on the head, right? You, for the first time in your life, for 30 days, you put yourself first.
Yeah.
You chose yourself, like, and you weren't doing it for anyone else. You weren't doing it to tell the girls that you managed 3 days without a glass of wine. You weren't doing it even for your family at that point because you actually are in such a desperate state to just feel better, aren't you? Like, and I think like, you know, you said it, like you have to just commit to it. And like, what were those first 30 days like? And like, at what point, I guess what I want to try and get to is the point where you realise that your way of living that you've lived for the last, I don't know, 30 years didn't work anymore. But like, what were the first 30 days of that recovery like?
Really hard, Nick. Really, really hard. It was, I was desperate for a change. I looked unwell. I looked very swollen. I think that's the one thing that I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, you don't look like Jayde anymore. Yeah, I was there, but I was kind of like, I was dead behind the eyes. There wasn't anything there. And I remember being really swollen, very tired, very emotional. I mean, we're a little bit emotional anyway, right? But like, oh God, it was just, I cried. I was hot. I remember being really hot and feeling like sticky all the time, like I wanted to keep having a shower. It's like almost washing your sins away. Do you know what I mean? And it was hard. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that was easy by any means. There were some days there because we have to remember as well, and I won't go too in depth with it here, but with the amount that I was drinking and using, I went cold turkey. I didn't wean off of anything. You couldn't wean off of the amount of drugs and alcohol that I was taking. And that is the reality of it. When you know, at one stage, how honest can we get?
As honest as you want.
At one stage, with the amount of drugs that I was taking and the amount of wine that I'd had, I was having 5 diazepams to get me to sleep at night, just to feel some sense of normality, and then waking up in the morning and repeating the cycle all over again. How I'm alive, Nick, I don't know. Because have you ever tried taking 50 milligrams of diazepam before?
No.
Right. Normal me now, it scares the life out of me. You imagine, Nick, right, what gear and alcohol does to your veins and to your blood, right? So we're going like this, quicker, and then diazepam brings it back down to...
Yeah.
Right? So you're going up here and down, the uppers and downers, right? And, Nick, I did that for so long that once I made this decision, people were like, you need to wean off of this. I said, no, we can't do that because I don't wean. I'm either all in or I'm all out. Typical ADHD trait, right? We're either all in or all out. And I wanted to be all out. And they were like, this is going to be rough. And I said, good, give it, like, hit me with it. So I was coming down off of all of the alcohol, all of the cocaine, and 5 diazepams a day. And that was rough. My body went into shock quite a bit. I remember laying in the bed, and you know when they say hold on for dear life. I said this in the last pod. I remember gripping the bed sheets and crying and like screaming like I thought I was going to die, and that is the reality of it. Oops, sorry. I thought I was going to die, and that took me a good 2 weeks, I reckon, to come back to some sense of normality or a feeling of like, you're okay, we've got this. Because in that initial 2 week period, your body, the first thing that it screams out for is just have a glass of wine because you're going to feel better. I can't do that.
Yeah.
No, you can't. So there's I've got ego Jayde and normal Jayde. And the ego Jayde was like, go on, babe, you just have a little glass. You'll feel so much better. All this pain will be gone. And then the bit of me that knew that I needed to get well was like, no, you won't be doing that. Do you know what I mean? So I think the first 2 weeks were pretty rough. I'd say the first month in general was hard. But then when I got to about 3 weeks, I remember thinking to myself, I get to pick my month chip up in front of all of these people in this group who are genuinely happy for the fact that I've got out of this situation that I was in. And it excited me. It was a bit of an ego boost, a little bit, like that somebody was going to clap for me for an achievement that I had made. And I hadn't had that for so long, Nick. You know, actual people that are around you that are clapping you for an accomplishment that when you really look at it, should we be clapped for that? You know, and that's what got me through. And I went in, I remember getting excited to go and pick up that 1 month chip. And then once I'd got it, I chucked it on my Instagram story and I was like, look at what I've done. Do you know what I mean? Because I was proud of myself. I hadn't been proud of myself ever in my life, but I set myself a plan. I stood on business and I achieved a goal that, you know, I'd set for myself. And that was the best feeling ever. And then I was chasing 3 months, you know. And then once you get to 3 months, you know, that's the red chip where everyone's really pissed off and angry. And then after the 3 months, so then I was, you know, it's probably the addict in me again, chasing the next high. But if the high that I'm chasing is getting a group of people that I've made friends with to clap for me because I've got through another month clean and sober, I'll chase that high any day of the week.
Yes.
Over chasing the buzz of drugs and alcohol, you know?
It's mad, like that feeling in it of, like you said, just feeling proud of yourself. And like also as well, you said like, you know, should you be clapped or like praised for doing that? But I think the reason that everyone else in their room's praising you is because they've been there, right? And they get it. And it's like, I love watching the light come back on in people's eyes. It's the fucking best thing in the world.
Isn't it amazing?
It's like you see this glaze that they've had over their eyes for years, yeah, and you see somebody come in and you see someone who's like newly sober and they walk in and they're just fucked and you just think, do you know what I think? I'm buzzing for you.
Oh, I'm buzzing.
And they're like, they look at me and I'm like, I'm so happy you're here. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, just give it time. Just like keep coming back or keep showing up for yourself, whether that be a meeting or whether that be in whatever way your recovery has manifested itself.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, just keep coming back. And then you see them like in a couple of weeks' time and they've had a haircut and like they've lost a bit of weight and the light's back on in their eyes and you just like, that is what keeps me sober now. That's what keeps me clean.
You
like,
and me both.
Because if I wasn't close to that still, I would forget. It's easy to forget, right? You spoke about ego. You know?
Really easy to forget. And this is why these, you know, going back to these meetings are so important. I know that like the rooms of CA and AA or recovery meetings in general, they carry like a bit of a stigma with them to people that have not actually fully experienced them before. I remember somebody said to me once, oh, it's like a bit like a cult. You know, what they don't realise is the life that is brought back in these rooms. And the buzz that we get, right, when we see people, makes me a bit emotional, when we see people that have been down and out in our position and people that have felt hopeless, unworthy, like they don't deserve anything, and seeing that light come back, and when they come up and they'll say something like, thank you for the hug that you gave me in that first meeting, thank you for being so welcoming. People remember those little bits, and it's why it's so important for us to keep going back to these meetings even when we don't want to. Don't do it for us. We have to do it for the newcomer that comes in to be like, look at him look how he's dressed. Nice pair of jeans, nice clean white top, fresh trim. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that gives them hope that if you keep coming back and you put the shit down, you can be like this too. Not that we're anything. I'm not saying that like we're the be all and end all, but mate, having a fresh top on and a fresh pair of jeans and no hangover, that looks pretty appetizing to me, you know, if I've been out there drinking and using for 5 years.
I shared this morning in a meeting, and I said, I'm struggling with work a little bit at the moment. And then I said, but I also remember when I got sacked and I didn't have a job and I didn't have any money and I couldn't hold down a job. I'm so grateful today to have a job. And it's like that there in itself is magical, right? It's like, and I see other people like talking, I've got my kids back in my life. I've got my wife back in my life. I'm doing well. And you just think, you know, I think you're so true and so bang on about like, if you just did what you needed to do, right, and you just took what you needed from sobriety, and this is just talking about this is in a general way, like you just got sober, you got clean, you got somebody who helped you in your life, and you just like, you took it and then you stopped. Like you said, what about the next person? Like what? So if everybody just went to meetings and everybody just did the steps, they worked through that, or if everybody got sober in other communities and then stopped engaging in that community and fucked off, what happens to the person and where, and who needs that, you know, and where are they left?
It's selfish. We were given something from AA, CA, whatever recovery meeting you're in, and it is our job to hand the baton on to the next person so that they've got it. And if you're not there, and if you're not present, and if you're not engaging with people that were in the same position we were in, who's there for them? Do you know what I mean? It becomes a bit selfish. But also, I don't know about you, but when I can give back, to watch someone, like they might come up to me, even if it's something little, and they're like, Jayde, this happened over the weekend. Can you give me a bit of advice? And I can actually stand there as somebody that has been in their position and give them advice that no counsellor, no therapist, nobody who, unless you've been in this position, you are not qualified to give that person advice. But they'll take it from us because they know that we've been there. And I'm not coming at you because I want anything for it. I don't come on this podcast to get sympathy for my addiction. I come, and you come, so that we can have share a little glimmer of hope and a little bit of light for somebody else that's in this situation.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
I remember you said something about like people remembering your names and stuff. And I went to my first meeting and I fucking wigged out, and I called you actually. And I was up in the South Downs and I was like, this is fucking horrible. I can't do it. But it was fear, right? It was fear. And a guy in a meeting spoke to me after and was like, just read the first line of the book or read the first step and, you know, see if it resonates with you, you need to be here. And I disappeared off for a while and I come back 12 weeks later and that same guy was like, you right, Nick? And it was 12 weeks, right? And I just felt like, I was like, what the hell? How does this guy remember my name? And a couple other people were like, you're right, Nick? And I was like, I haven't been here for 12 weeks. Like, how do you even remember my name? And it was like, I'd see these people outside like laughing and joking. And I'd be like, what are they all laughing and joking about? Like, what's so funny?
Right.
And, you know, find yourself later, like, hugging people like, every week, like, saying, how are you? How's your week been? And it's like, the only way I can describe it is like the same buzz I used to get when I'd come out of the pub and I'd had like 3 or 4, like the good buzz.
Right.
Yeah, I'd had like 3 or 4 beers.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 lines.
Just the 2?
Yeah, just for that. But that was the bit
Wet
was
wipe.
fun. No, the fun bit. Before it was like fucking sitting in the kitchen, switching, looking at it. But you know that buzz you'd get when you're drinking? That is the same feeling that I get when I connect in any way with anybody else who knows what I'm talking about, whether it be through a phone call, a meeting, or connecting with someone online, whatever it is, it's that little buzz that keeps me going.
100%. And you just touched on something there which made me laugh. I remember when I first walked into the rooms and they were all standing out the front. There must have been about 20 people out the front of this meeting, all laughing and joking. And I just looked a mess and I was crying and I thought, I don't know what you lot are fucking laughing about. What are you lot laughing about? It's nothing funny here. I don't find anything funny. And now I'm that person. Do you know what I mean? And I'll tell you why I'm laughing and joking, because my life is absolutely amazing now. And I'm laughing and joking because I can actually enjoy myself and enjoy life and just enjoy being. I enjoy going to these meetings, you know. And I remember that, so when you said that, it did make me laugh, because I used to think, I don't know why you lot are laughing. There's nothing funny about being in here.
I remember as well, and I remember like hearing people share about like really fucked up stuff and everyone cracking up. And I was thinking, and I was looking around and I was like, oh, it's okay to laugh.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool, because people were so brutally honest. And it's like, speaking to someone literally yesterday actually, and they was asking me about like, oh, and I'm a bit nervous about like talking openly about stuff, and I was like, what do you like to hear when you're in the meetings? He was like, I just love it when people are really honest. I was like,
you've just hit
there
it
you
out
go,
on the
you know.
head.
And
Do you know
like,
what I mean?
well, you feel instantly better, right, after you've shared openly, and like I can now laugh about our recovery, right?
Will we do that most days?
But it's a lovely place to be, because it's like, it's funny because we're not in it anymore. Like, we're so far removed from it
that it becomes like a distant version of yourself. But I think part of the reason as well, Nick, is when they say, you know, when you said like, we'll come out of a meeting and you think, oh, I feel so much better. You know why? Because you got honest.
Yeah,
that's why. Who are we hiding from? And more importantly, who are we afraid to be honest in front of?
Yeah,
that's
goes
the
back
big
to
question that
what you said
yourself
earlier about who you're around, right? Because when I'm around, I can feel myself still sometimes, depending on who it is or where I am, putting that mask back on. Yeah. And that's when I put that mask back on is when my character defects then come out with the people that I should be most loving to, because I've been a version of myself which isn't really fair to myself, and then I get resentful that I've had to put this mask on all day, and then I go away, and the person that I love and the person that I care about and all my family, my friends, my partner, I then come back angry, and they take the brunt of it, and it's like, right, well, that's not fair. So what I do now is, like you said, is I just be myself. And you know what it is? It's not all the time, but when I am myself and someone doesn't like me, I'm at peace with it, because it's like, if you don't like me for who I am, then maybe I'm okay with that.
To be here anyway. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is the beauty of all of this stuff. Living unapologetically as yourself. And it wasn't until I did that I felt free. And that doesn't come straight away with this program or with getting sober. You have to learn along the way, right? And it's like, I can honestly sit here in front of you right now and tell you that everything that you see, everything that you hear that comes out of my mouth is me. I don't shadow myself, cover myself, or put a mask on for anyone or anything. And I think that's why I feel so amazing, because I hid behind this version of myself for so long that was a lie. And why? To impress. Who are you trying to impress, Jayde? Well, you're trying to impress John over there, who's just gone into the toilet and like done a whole gram of gear in like 2 sittings. Do you know what I mean? What front are you trying to face? Same with the car that you drive, or same with this and the clothes and the watches. That's all projection to try and make other people think that you're something that you're not. And when we're able to drop that and live literally unapologetically as us, that's where the freedom is, babe.
Yeah.
That is freedom. And it feels so nice. And this is just me. I mean, you might get some harsh truths every now and again, because I've lost. Sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes I could work on maybe my delivery of things. But we don't live behind lies, and it's the beauty of this program, right? I can't lie anymore. I don't know about you.
No.
And if I do, every now and again, tell like a little white lie, I check myself real quick and I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I did that. Sorry.
I
lied.
Sometimes, occasionally, and it's definitely less so nowadays, but like I might exaggerate the truth a little bit. So I'll say to someone like, just sat in 6 hours of traffic. I was in traffic for 10 minutes.
You said it to me the other day. Where were you? You were driving somewhere. You were like, man, I was in that traffic for 4 hours.
And I was on the phone to you for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, you were like, oh, bravo, it was about 30 minutes. I was like, but, that's fine. But I'm talking about like the serious stuff. We can actually get honest with ourselves and with other people. And it's like, listen, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And actually that's when you'll attract the right people into your life. People will be attracted into your life because they love you for who you are. And if people don't like you, that's okay too. You know, we can't be everyone's cup of tea, or else we'd be a mug.
Exactly. But no, it's true. And I think the other thing as well is like people I truly, honestly, deeply care about now, I don't sugarcoat things because I care about them.
I know.
Right? Yeah, yeah. But it's
If you
like,
want something sugar-coated, eat a donut.
yeah, that's it. But it's because I genuinely care about that person, right? So I take myself out of like, is this going to offend you? And put myself into like, what is genuinely in that person's best interest?
100%.
And just say like, look, this is what I think, but also try and, I'm the same as you, sometimes probably could work on my delivery a little bit, but I think ultimately I will say to that person, this is coming from a place of love and I'm telling you this because I love you. Like, I think you should really consider what you're doing, you know? Whereas before, I wouldn't say that, and then that would eat me up inside a bit, I think. And like, also, one thing that I was going to ask you about is like, how have you learnt to like let go, right? Because my life, forever, I was in the driver's seat and I was in control and it was a fucking mess. And then when I let go, it all of a sudden become a lot easier. So how did you find that process of like letting go of, I guess, your old self and letting go of control?